The sun was just beginning to rise, painting soft golden lines across the rooftops. Inside a small apartment, a boy named Ethan sat at the kitchen table, carefully erasing a smudge from his math homework. He was 12, quiet, and always tried to stay out of trouble. His mother worked long hours at the diner, so mornings were usually silent, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the scratching of his pencil. Ethan double-checked every answer, his handwriting neat, his focus sharp. This homework wasn't just paper to him. It was proof that he was trying. Proof that even if life wasn't easy, he still cared. When he was done, he slipped the papers carefully into a folder, tucked it into his backpack, and whispered to himself, just one more day. And the week's over, he smiled faintly, not knowing that this morning would change everything. Ethan always walked the same route, down Maple Street, past the old park, and across the bridge where he liked to watch the ducks. It was quiet there, and for a few minutes, he could imagine life was simple. He hummed softly to himself, his backpack bouncing gently on his shoulders. The folder inside rustled with every step, his precious homework, ready to be turned in. But as he neared the school, the sounds changed. Laughter, shouting, the kind of laughter that made his stomach twist. Standing near the school gate were Jake, Connor, and Liam, the three boys who always found a reason to bother him. Ethan's steps slowed. He lowered his gaze, hoping to slip past them unnoticed. "Hey, look who it is," Jake called, his voice sharp and playful. "Little genius boy?" Ethan's heart sank. He forced a small smile and mumbled, "Morning," trying to keep walking. But Liam blocked his path. "What you got there, Ethan? More nerd notes?" Ethan clutched his backpack straps tightly. "Just homework," Connor smirked. "Oh yeah, let's see it." Ethan hesitated, his mind racing. "I need to turn it in before he could finish." Jake snatched the folder from his backpack and waved it in the air. "Homework!" "Wow, look at this!" All neat and perfect, like he's trying to impress someone. The others laughed. Ethan's chest tightened. His hands trembled slightly. "Please, give it back," he whispered. But they didn't stop. Not yet. Jake held the papers above his head, teasing him as Ethan reached up helplessly. "Come on, short stack, jump for it." Liam chuckled. "What's the matter, Ethan?" "Too weak." Connor's laughter echoed across the yard. Then in one swift motion, Jake crumpled the top sheet. Ethan froze. "No," he whispered. Rip, another page torn. Another piece of Ethan's effort. Gone. They tore the pages one by one, letting the pieces fall like snow to the ground. Ethan just stood there, unable to move, unable to speak. His throat burned. His eyes stung, but he refused to cry. When they were done, Jake tossed the last shredded piece into a puddle. "Oops," he said, smirking. "Guess you'll have to start over." They walked away, still laughing, leaving Ethan standing there with his backpack half open and his heart crushed. The school bell rang in the distance. Faint but steady, Ethan knelt slowly, gathering the torn pages from the ground. Some were too soaked to save. Others were ripped beyond repair. His hands shook as he tried to piece them together, whispering softly, "It's okay. I can fix it. I can do it again." But deep down, he knew he couldn't. Not this time. A soft breeze carried a piece of paper across the path, fluttering away toward the corner of the building. Ethan didn't notice the shadow that paused there, the figure watching quietly from a distance. Someone had seen everything. That afternoon, Ethan sat in class, silent and distant. The teacher collected assignments, smiling at each student. When she reached him, he just shook his head. I lost it," he said softly. Her smile faded. "Oh, Ethan, again." He nodded, unable to explain. At lunch, he sat alone under the tree near the playground. The laughter from other kids floated through the air, distant and hollow. He pulled out his notebook and began rewriting what he could remember. Line by line, word by word, but the pages stayed mostly blank. His hand wouldn't move. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Maybe it's better if I just stay invisible." Yet, from across the yard, the same quiet figure who had witnessed the bullying earlier watched him again, eyes filled with thought, and maybe, just maybe, a plan. Ethan left home earlier than usual. The hallway smelled faintly of detergent and warm dust. He slipped on his backpack, feeling the weight of the folder settle against his spine like something fragile he had to protect. He tapped the spine twice, a quiet habit, a promise to himself that today would go right. The elevator was slow. Old cables whined. He took the stairs instead, counting each step under his breath. Don't think about them. Just get to class. Hand it in. Outside, the air was cool and gray, the kind of morning that made the town feel paused. Maple leaves trembled on their branches. Somewhere a dog barked once, then went quiet. Ethan walked with careful rhythm, hugging the sidewalk's edge and avoiding the broken places where rain sat in shallow mirrors. His folder made a soft slide sound when his steps bounced. He could hear it, and it calmed him. He imagined the teacher's nod. He imagined a checkmark by his name. He imagined a small, bright feeling. I did it. The last turn before school always felt different. It was where the street narrowed and the chain-link fence began. Beyond the fence lay the athletic field, still damp, still empty, with small white chalk lines left like the bones of a game. He usually sped up here, head low, hands tucked in straps. Today, voices reached him first. Not loud, not a crowd. Familiar. Jake's laugh had a sharp edge. Connor's had a low chug to it. Liam's sounded like someone tapping a glass with a spoon, quick and careless. Ethan knew each sound the way you know the noises inside your own house. He kept walking. He practiced being invisible. Smaller steps, smaller breath, shoulders closer together. Just pass. Just pass, don't look at them. A gust pushed a piece of trash across the sidewalk and it tangled on his shoe. He shook it off and kept going. The school gates came into view, open black bars against the sky. One teacher stood far away near the office door, head bent over a clipboard. Another group of kids clustered by the bike rack. Nobody was looking this way, except the three near the gate. "Morning, Ethan," Jake called, casual and sunny like a person being friendly. Ethan's back went stiff. He looked down and nodded at the ground. "Morning." Connor leaned a shoulder against the fence. "Big day. Forgot your crown?" Liam's smile thinned. "He's got a crown, all right." "In that bag." Ethan tried to keep walking. "Just 3 more steps. 2. 1. Jake slid sideways, planting a foot in front of him without touching him. The road beyond the gate felt far away now. The quiet morning had a shape around them, like a glass dome. Jake tipped his chin at the backpack. "Show and tell?" Ethan's mouth was dry. "It's just homework," Connor chuckled. "Just homework," he repeated as if the words were a joke. "You hear that, Jake? Just homework. Keep your voice steady. Don't run. Running makes it worse." Ethan eased his grip on his straps and tried to step around them. Liam moved with him, smooth and easy, like a dancer who knew the next move already. "Hey," Liam said, almost gentle. "Let us see." It started small. A tug at the zipper. Not even a rough one, just curious. Ethan's hand shot back on instinct and caught the zipper first. He looked at the ground. "Please don't," he said, and he hated how soft his voice sounded, like it was already apologizing. Jake laughed. "We're not gonna steal it. We're your quality control." His fingers landed lightly on the zipper, too. 2 fingers only, like a promise. "Relax." Ethan's breath made a quiet tremble he couldn't hide. "Say no." "Say it again, please." "Don't." Jake's smile folded a little. For a moment, he looked like a kid who didn't know what face to wear. Then he chose a new one. "We insist." The zipper slid. The sound was long in the morning stillness, like fabric sighing. Ethan's heartbeat drummed against the straps. He could feel Connor close to his right, Liam close to his left. There was no push, just pressure, just presence. Jake lifted the folder out carefully, almost respectfully, like it was a book from a library. "Here it is," he said. "The prize." The folder opened like a mouth. Pages, neat and numbered, waited inside. Graphs drawn in pencil. Margins clean and narrow. Ethan's initials, EK, in the top right of each sheet. Connor whistled low. "Look at that. Guy spent his whole life on this." Liam tapped a pencil line, straight as a ruler. "You kiss each page goodnight?" Jake fanned the papers. He didn't tear them, not yet. He lifted them up and let the air move through, flipping them like light cards. The morning wind grabbed edges and rattled them. For a second, Jake studied one problem and squinted, as if trying to understand the logic. "Why?" Jake said, half to himself. "Why do you do all this?" Ethan didn't know the right answer. "Because I can control this." "'Cause it's something I can fix. Because I have to," he said. Jake nodded as if that made sense. Then he smiled again, and the smile was wrong. "That's the part I don't like," he said softly. The paper made a shy sound when it tore. Not dramatic. Not like in movies. A dry little hush like leaves under a shoe. Ethan's eyes widened and then shut. The world tilted. "No, no, no, that felt good," Connor said, surprised at himself like he'd popped bubble wrap. "Do another one." Liam pinched a corner and pulled. "Oops." Jake held the rest a little higher, out of reach. Ethan reached anyway. His fingers grazed the bottom edge of a page and caught for a second, soft teeth on a thread, and then lost it. "Please," Ethan said, and the word was almost voiceless. He could hear his own blood. He could hear the fence rattle when someone on the far side moved a bike. He could hear a crow call and then another. Everything else was quiet. Jake met his eyes for 1 second. There was a flicker there, something unsure. Then it was gone. He split another page down the middle, neat as a seam. Like a boy who liked straight lines, too. Paper fell. White scraps touched the ground and stuck to damp places. Ethan's breath got smaller. His hands hovered at his sides because he didn't know whether to grab or protect or push or beg. He wanted to be brave. He didn't know how. People moved around them. A couple of 7th graders passed, talking about a video game, then looked away fast. A girl with a yellow backpack glanced over, winced, and sped up. One of the assistant coaches strolled by the far end of the field, eyes on his phone. No one stopped. No one called out. It wasn't a scene. It was just a moment, small enough to slip through everyone's attention. Ethan felt the loneliness press in. It's happening again. They're going to say I lost it. They're going to think I'm careless. She's going to be tired tonight and I won't tell her. He thought of his mother's hands, always smelling faintly of lemon soap and coffee. Folding a damp rag at the diner, telling him, "Try your best and keep your head." He tried. He kept his head, he swallowed. "Please. I worked hard." Jake shifted the stack to his other hand. "We know, that's the point." They didn't shove him. They turned it into a game. Jake lifted the stack high. Connor held one page at chest level and leaned back when Ethan reached. Liam pretended to hand a piece over, then twitched it away with a grin. "Almost," Liam said. "Almost got it." Ethan reached again. The folder dropped from Jake's fingers and landed in a shallow puddle, the cover going dark where water soaked in. Ethan flinched. Liam laughed. Connor made a small, sympathetic ooh sound that wasn't sympathetic at all. "Careful," Jake said, like he was reminding him for his own good. Something broke in Ethan then. Not a loud crack, just a thread popping. His face got hot. He lunged, grabbed one loose page from Connor, clutched it to his chest like it could stop the whole hurt. Connor blinked, surprised. Jake's eyes sharpened. "Hey," Jake said, voice dipping. "Relax," Ethan hugged the paper tighter. "It's mine." Jake's mouth twisted. "Not anymore." He knew he shouldn't shake. He knew it made them smile, but his fingers wouldn't obey. They rattled like small sticks. The page he'd saved trembled with them. The careful pencil lines turned to a soft gray blur. "Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry." He stared at the ground and tried to breathe slowly. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. He had learned that from a video once. His chest tried, but his heart didn't listen. "Look," Liam said, bright as a new penny. "He's going to—" "Shut up," Jake muttered, surprising them both. Something like guilt darted across his face and vanished. He wasn't a monster. He was a boy trying on a costume, and it fit too well. Jake took the last intact sheets and bent them, not ripping yet, just bending them back, 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 to the point of almost breaking. Ethan made a sound without meaning to, a small ah that barely left his throat. Jake let the pages spring back. "See?" he said softly. "Bend enough times and it tears on its own." Then he tore them, time stretched. Ethan could feel each second slide past, slow as syrup. The breeze, gentle and cool a moment ago, turned into something with edges. It cut at his ears. His cheeks went numb. The sound of paper tearing repeated steady. It became the metronome of the minute. Tear, tear, tear. White pieces floated. Some landed on his shoes and clung there like damp petals. Some spun in little circles before settling. The puddle spread, thin and brown at the edges, and swallowed a corner of the folder. Connor tossed a piece up and watched it fall. "Snow," he said, amused. Liam stomped near Ethan's foot, playful like a dog pretending to bite. Ethan didn't move. He couldn't. His knees felt hollow. He focused on a single thing. A small graphite smudge near the bottom of a page. His own fingerprint from late last night when he'd redrawn a graph after messing up a line. A private mark. Proof that the pages were his. Jake lowered the last sheet. It had Ethan's initials on it. E.K. Jake stared at the letters, then looked at Ethan, then back at the letters. His jaw moved like he was chewing words he didn't want. He tore that one last. Silence came back like a blanket. It didn't comfort. It smothered. The three stepped away at the same time, as if a whistle had blown. Jake wiped his hands on his hoodie. Nothing to wipe there, just the movement. Connor shoved his hands in his pockets and rocked on his heels. Liam blew a bit of paper off his knuckle and grinned like he'd done a magic trick. Jake nodded at the mess. "Shouldn't litter," he said lightly, and then he turned as if nothing had happened and headed for the gate. Connor clapped Liam's shoulder and followed. Liam lingered a second longer, head tilted, studying Ethan like a science project that hadn't turned out. "See you inside," he said, and the words had a bounce to them like they were friends. They left him there with the water and the paper. Ethan crouched, slowly, like an old man. His knees creaked. He put the rescued page, the one he'd clutched, on top of his shoe to keep it clean. Then he started collecting the rest. It took time. Wet paper sticks. Torn edges argue with fingers. His hands learned a new patience because what else could they do? He tried to make each scrap fit back into its shape. It didn't work. The soft fibers sank and blurred. His pencil marks bled into gray puddles that looked nothing like numbers. The care was gone. The proof was gone. I can fix it. No, not all of it. Maybe a few problems. Maybe if I explain. He imagined the teacher's face again. The imagined nod was gone. He saw instead the small fold that appears between eyebrows when someone is disappointed, but trying not to show it. A car door thumped somewhere. A metal cart clanged lightly in the far corridor, wheels squeaking. The bell hadn't rung yet. There was still time and also no time at all. He gathered what he could into the soggy folder. The cover had warped. It didn't close right. Paper ooze squished out the sides like toothpaste. He stood and swayed a little, and almost sat back down. He didn't. He breathed. He walked into the building by the side door, the one that always smelled like floor polish and dust. His shoes made wet prints. He wanted water and a paper towel and a mirror to say, "You're okay. You're still a person." The bathroom lights buzzed. The mirror was speckled. He avoided his eyes anyway. He focused on the sink and rinsed his fingers one by one, watching gray swirls circle the drain. His hands looked smaller under the fluorescent lights. He turned the folder on its spine and let some water run along the edge to wash mud off. It was a mistake. The cardboard sagged more. He laughed once, a short, strange sound. He peeled 2 pages apart that had stuck. They came free with a wet sigh. He shook them gently, like leaves after rain. Maybe I can copy the clean parts in homeroom. Maybe she'll let me turn it in after class. The door opened. 2 boys came in, talking about a soccer drill. They saw him and the mess in the sink, and their words hiccuped. One looked away fast. The other said, "Yo." And then they walked into stalls and kept talking from behind doors. Ethan wiped the pages with thin brown towels that tore if you pressed too hard. He pressed too hard. The page tore. He put the folder back in his bag. He folded the top closed like closing a wound. He washed his face. The water was cold. He looked up at the mirror then, just once. The boy there looked like someone who'd been underwater too long. Homeroom smelled like erasers and faint perfume. Kids slid into seats and dropped backpacks with soft thuds. The overhead PA crackled and offered the daily pledge in a cheerful voice. Ethan sat and tried to make himself smaller than the desk. He pulled a fresh sheet from his notebook and wrote his name at the top because that alone felt like progress. "Assignments up front," Ms. Delaney said. Bright and routine. Papers rustled. A stack appeared on the front table. White, crisp, promising. Ethan stood, then sat, then stood again. He walked to the table with his notebook page in his hand because it was something paper-shaped. Ms. Delaney smiled at him without quite seeing him yet. When he reached the table, the smile faded, gentle and confused. "Ethan?" His throat closed. He offered the notebook page like it was a real thing. "I lost it." Her head tilted. Not angry. Not scolding. Just tired sad for a second. "Again?" He nodded. I'm sorry. She looked at him for a heartbeat longer than was comfortable. In that heartbeat, something like understanding flickered. Then the moment moved on. All right, she said, soft. Talk to me after first period. He nodded again and went back to his seat and stared at his hands until the lines on his palms looked like maps of a place he didn't want to visit. Behind him, a whisper started. He didn't turn it in. Another whisper answered. He probably forgot. He always loses stuff. He said nothing. He listened to the clock. At lunch, he sat under the same tree as the day before. The ground there was dry enough to sit without getting grass marks, and the shade made a little room that belonged to him. He took out a pen because pens feel like authority, and wrote down the problems he remembered. Not neatly, just fast. Scraping the words into the page like you could dig a tunnel through paper if you tried hard enough. Number 3 was the graph with the 2 lines. The intersection was. He closed his eyes to see it. His brain offered him the image of a page tearing instead. A bee hovered near his juice box, decided against it, and drifted away. Kids laughed somewhere. A whistle blew. A ball thumped the ground and rolled and rolled. He wrote a number that might have been right, and then doubted it, and then crossed it out so hard the page tore a little. He pressed the torn place flat and kept going. He felt eyes on him once, quick, not mean. He looked up and saw nothing particular. Just the far side of the yard, the corner of the building, the line of windows reflecting white sky. As he worked, his mind replayed the morning. Not in order. Bits spiked up, the sound of the first tear, the way the folder darkened with water. Jake's face when he looked at EK. He kept thinking about that face. Not just the smirk. The other expression under it. What was that? He imagined saying something different. He imagined yelling. He imagined grabbing the pages and running. He imagined telling a teacher right away. In each version, something went wrong anyway. What if I had laughed? What if I joked back? What if I said, "You win," before they tried to win? Would that have changed the ending? The bell ended lunch. He stood slowly, slid his notebook away, and brushed grass off his jeans. His hands smelled like paper towels and pencil lead. On the way to science, he passed the hallway bulletin board, where announcements curled at the corners from too much tape. A new flyer had been added. Peer Support Group Mondays, Room 112. The words looked kind in a way that made him suspicious. He didn't stop. Near the water fountain, he almost collided with a teacher, Mr. Finch, the one who handled detentions. Mr. Finch looked at him, looked at the backpack, the wet edge of the folder peeking out, the gray smudges on Ethan's fingers. Mr. Finch opened his mouth, then closed it, then said, "Careful, kid," and kept walking fast like someone late to a meeting. Ethan's stomach sank. Careful about what? Water on the floor? Or something else? By last period, the day had lost definition, like a photo left in the rain. He copied whatever was on the board without reading it. He nodded when someone whispered his name. He laughed once at a joke he didn't hear, then worried that laughing meant everything was fine. He wasn't fine. He was floating. When the final bell rang, the chairs scraped the floor, the room emptied, and he lingered. He packed slow. He adjusted straps he didn't need to adjust. He wanted the day to be over, and also wanted to step along the hall when no one else would be there. When the building talked in clicks and hums and the janitor's cart squeaked, and he could maybe be a ghost for a while. He left the room last. The hallway had a silver look in the afternoon light, lockers gleaming like fish. He moved toward the exit that led to Maple Street. He reached the gate again. The puddle was gone, spread thin and drunk by the dust. A few pale scraps clung to the fence, dried there, soft as moth wings. He reached up and pinched one free. The pencil mark on it could have been anyone's. He put it in his pocket anyway and didn't know why. On the sidewalk, he paused. He looked toward the park bridge, toward the ducks. The sky had opened into a deeper blue. He thought about sitting there for a while and letting the quacks and the water sounds wash the day off him. Home, he told himself. Go home. He took 3 steps, then paused again because he felt it. That prickle, that sense of being seen. He turned his head slowly. The corner of the building held shadow even in afternoon sun. In that shadow stood a shape, still solid, not a kid. Not moving like a kid. Watching, Ethan blinked. The figure didn't disappear. Keys clicked softly, 2, 3, like a habit. The figure shifted just enough to step out of shadow and into light. The face was calm. Not a teacher, not a parent. A person he'd seen but never really noticed. The custodian with the gray cap and careful hands who rolled the squeaky cart down the halls. The man's name tag was small. Ethan had never read it. In the man's other hand, not the one with the keys, glinted a rectangle. Thin, black, held low. A phone. He didn't raise it. He didn't wave. He just looked at Ethan with a steady, quiet knowing. The kind that says, "I was there. I saw." There was no accusation in it. No pity either. Only attention, sharp and focused, like light through glass. The custodian tapped the phone once with his thumb, as if saving something, and slipped it into his pocket. Then he nodded. A single deliberate nod that felt like the end of a sentence, or the beginning of one. He turned away and disappeared down the side corridor. The squeak of the cart resuming half a beat later, like a heart that had decided to keep going. Ethan stood very still. The small scrap of paper warm in his palm. Someone saw. The afternoon felt different now, not lighter, not fixed, but changed. A new thread ran through it, thin and bright. He didn't know where it led. He only knew it was there. He took a breath that reached the bottom of his lungs for the first time since morning. Then he started walking, slow, steady toward the bridge, toward the ducks, toward whatever would come next. Behind him, at the corner of the building, a red light blinked once on a mounted camera, tiny and unnoticed by almost everyone who passed. Today, it had not blinked alone. Mr. Harlan had been working at Ridgewood Middle School for 7 years. Every morning before the first bell rang, he walked the halls with his mop bucket and keys, humming quiet songs that no one recognized. He was a man people looked through and not at. Teachers nodded politely. Students ignored him. And the only time someone spoke to him was when something needed fixing. He didn't mind. Not anymore. The cart squeaked with each turn of the wheel, a sound so familiar that even silence felt wrong without it. His hands were calloused, nails clean, movements slow but certain. He knew the rhythm of the building. When the lunchroom lights flickered, which doors stuck in the rain, which student carved initials into the bathroom stalls. That morning, he had been sweeping near the gym entrance when he heard the voices. Boys laughing, jeering. He almost ignored it. The world was full of noise. But then he heard another sound, smaller, sharper, the unmistakable rip of paper. He turned his head toward the open gate. Through the fence, he saw them, 3 boys towering over a smaller one. The smaller one wasn't fighting back, just standing, trembling, clutching at torn paper. Mr. Harlan's broom stopped mid-sweep. At first, he told himself it wasn't his business. Kids were cruel. That's how they learned. He'd seen worse, far worse. But something about the stillness of that boy, the quiet way he picked up pieces instead of running, that bothered him. He set the broom aside, his heart suddenly louder than his footsteps. "Not again," he muttered under his breath. "Not this time." Mr. Harlan had learned the power of silence long ago. When he was Ethan's age, he had been the boy on the ground too. Except back then, no one had phones and the teachers didn't ask questions. The Bullies took his lunch money every Tuesday behind the old gym. One day it was a punch instead of a shove. The janitor had been there then too, sweeping, watching, doing nothing. That image never left him. Now, decades later, the same school, the same sounds, the same helpless face. Only the names had changed. He gripped the handle of his broom until his knuckles turned white. "Don't get involved," his mind warned. "You've got a job to keep." The district had rules. Custodians weren't supposed to confront students directly. Any incidents were to be reported to administration. "Stay professional," the principal always said. "We don't need drama." But paper was scattering on the wind, and that boy, Ethan, was kneeling in it, hands trembling as he tried to piece his homework back together. That wasn't drama. That was pain. Mr. Harlan reached for his pocket. His old smartphone buzzed faintly when he turned on the screen. A cracked line ran through the top corner, a reminder of how long he'd had it. He opened the camera app and aimed it through the fence, zooming in slowly, steady hands capturing the truth in silence. He didn't speak. Didn't move. Just recorded. The boys laughed louder, unaware of the quiet eye watching them. When it was over and they left, Mr. Harlan kept the phone in his palm for a long moment, staring at the screen. The recording icon stopped blinking. His heart pounded in two rhythms, one of anger, one of fear. Now what? He looked down at the mop bucket. The water inside was still, reflecting the torn white pages like floating ghosts. That afternoon he sat in the janitor's office, a small windowless room behind the gym that smelled of bleach and dust. The walls were lined with brooms, mops, and spare boxes of cleaning powder. Above his desk hung a faded photo of his daughter, Mia, taken when she was Ethan's age. She lived 3 towns away now, a teacher herself. He unlocked his phone again and replayed the video. It was short, less than a minute, but every frame felt heavy. Ethan's face pale and still. Jake's smirk, the torn paper falling like snow. He paused the video and stared at it. If he turned this in, it could mean trouble. Not for him, but for them. He'd seen what happened when kids were labeled bullies. The system didn't forgive easily. Detentions led to suspensions. Suspensions led to whispers. And sometimes those whispers followed them for years. But if he stayed silent, then what did that make him? He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. His daughter's voice echoed in memory, from a call months ago when she'd told him about a fight at her school. "Dad, the hardest thing isn't stopping the bad ones. It's teaching them to be better." He rubbed his temples. "Teaching," he whispered. "Yeah, but how?" He imagined walking into the principal's office. He imagined her polite smile turning sharp when she realized he'd filmed students without permission. He imagined the meeting, the questions, the potential reprimand. Janitors didn't get many second chances. Still, the boy's face haunted him. The way Ethan whispered to himself, "I can fix it." That line echoed more than the laughter. Mr. Harlan sighed and whispered into the still room. "You can't fix everything, kid. But maybe I can fix this one." The next morning he arrived early again. He watched Ethan come in, head low, carrying the same backpack, the one with the warped folder peeking out. The boy moved through the halls like a shadow. No one noticed him. No one greeted him. Mr. Harlan's chest tightened. He pushed his cart slowly toward the science wing, the wheels squeaking in rhythm with his thoughts. Jake and his friends were already at their lockers laughing about something else now. A video, a game, nothing that mattered. They didn't look guilty. They didn't look changed. He wondered if they even remembered what they'd done. He reached his mop closet, unlocked it, and leaned inside. Not for supplies, but for the phone he'd hidden there overnight. He opened the gallery again, watching the same minute one more time. Then something new caught his attention, a detail he hadn't noticed before. In the reflection of a window near the scene, another shape moved. A teacher, maybe. Someone walking by. Someone who also might have seen. His pulse quickened. If another adult had witnessed it and done nothing. That changed things, he zoomed in. The reflection was blurry, but the outline looked familiar. Tall, dark hair. Jacket with a coffee stain on the sleeve. Mr. Finch, the detention supervisor. He had been right there. Mr. Harlan felt a wave of disbelief wash over him. Finch was known for being strict, zero tolerance for bad behavior. Yet he had walked past that moment and said nothing. "So it's not just me," he whispered. "It's the whole system that looks away." He pocketed the phone and straightened his shoulders. His heart still argued with his brain. If he exposed this, he'd make enemies. If he didn't, he'd become part of the silence again. He thought of Ethan's small, trembling hands picking up paper. He thought of the janitor who'd ignored him all those years ago. The memory burned. It was lunchtime when he made his choice. The cafeteria was noisy, the clatter of trays, the hum of conversation. He stood near the doorway, unnoticed as always, watching students pass by. Ethan sat alone again under the tree outside, eating quietly, eyes distant. Mr. Harlan pulled out his phone, opened the gallery, and selected the video. His thumb hovered over the share button. He hesitated. He could send it to the principal. He could send it to the local district. He could even post it anonymously, but that wasn't his way. He thought of his daughter again, how she once told him that real courage wasn't about shouting the truth. It was about standing in it. He took a deep breath. Pocketing the phone, he walked straight into the administration office. The receptionist, startled, looked up. "Mr. Harlan? Everything okay?" He nodded, calm but firm. I need to show something to Principal Lee, now. Minutes later, he stood before the principal's desk. The hum of the air conditioner filled the pauses between their words. Principal Lee was a composed woman in her 50s, her glasses perched on the edge of her nose. "What's this about, Mr. Harlan?" He set the phone down gently. "You'll want to see this." He pressed play. The video rolled in silence, no commentary, no exaggeration, just truth. The laughter, the torn pages, Ethan's quiet defeat. When it ended, the room stayed still. The principal exhaled slowly. "My God," she said. "How long ago was this?" "Yesterday morning. Did anyone else see?" "I think so," he said carefully. "But I can't be sure." She looked up at him. "You understand you weren't supposed to record students?" "I do," he said. "But I also understand what happens when no one does." Her expression softened. She sat back, folding her hands. "You might have just saved that boy, Mr. Harlan." He nodded once, not smiling. "Let's hope so." As he left the office, he felt lighter, not relieved, not safe, but lighter. The kind of weight that shifts when you finally act after years of silence. Outside, he glanced through the window and saw Ethan still sitting alone under the tree, tracing circles on his notebook with a pen. He didn't know yet that his story had changed direction. Mr. Harlan took a deep breath of the cool afternoon air. "Not invisible anymore," he murmured. And as he turned to leave, the faint red light on the hallway camera blinked again, this time recording a man who finally chose to see. The morning after Mr. Harlan showed the video, the air at Ridgewood Middle School felt different. Not loud different, quiet different. The kind of silence that moves through hallways before anyone knows why they're whispering. Teachers spoke softer. Students looked around more. Even the clocks seemed to tick louder than usual. Ethan didn't know anything yet. He just walked into class the way he always did, head down, holding his new notebook like a fragile thing. His hands were clean this time. No smudges, no paper dust, but they trembled the same. He noticed people looking at him, not in the usual, "Why's he so quiet?" way, but with the cautious curiosity people reserve for someone who's about to be talked about. He didn't understand. In the teacher's lounge, Principal Lee stood with two counselors, a guidance advisor, and Mr. Finch, the detention supervisor. On her desk sat Mr. Harlan's phone face down. The room was thick with unspoken things. Mr. Finch cleared his throat. "You're sure this isn't being shared outside?" Principal Lee nodded. "Not yet. I've informed the parents involved. But this can't stay internal forever. If the district sees it before we act, we'll look complicit." Mr. Harlan stood near the doorway, hat in his hands. "Ma'am, I didn't do it to make noise. I just couldn't." She raised a hand gently. "You did the right thing, Mr. Harlan, but right things aren't always easy." The bell rang for first period. Outside, laughter echoed faintly, that careless sound that didn't fit anymore. By midday, the story had started to spread, not officially, not through announcements or letters, but through glances, half-heard conversations, and one student who claimed, "I saw the video." Most didn't believe it. Some did. Everyone wondered who the victim was. At lunch, the cafeteria buzzed with rumor. Someone got filmed getting jumped. No, it wasn't a fight, it was homework or something. I heard it was Jake and his crew. Jake sat with Connor and Liam at their usual table. His laugh was quieter now, forced. Every time someone walked by, his shoulders stiffened. Connor scrolled his phone nervously. Liam poked at his food, pretending not to care. "Man, it's fine," Jake muttered, trying to convince himself more than them. "It's just paper." "Nobody got hurt," Connor didn't answer. Liam finally said, "You think they'll tell our parents?" Jake shrugged, eyes darting to the lunchroom door, half expecting a teacher to walk in and call his name. The door didn't open. Instead, Mr. Harlan pushed his cart past the window, his reflection sliding across the glass like a ghost. Jake's stomach turned. He didn't know why, but for the first time he couldn't laugh. Across the courtyard, Ethan ate alone again. But this time, people didn't walk past him without noticing. A girl from science class slowed down as she passed, then stopped. "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan blinked. Yeah," she hesitated. "If you need someone to work with for the group project, I'm around." Then she left before he could answer. He looked down at his food. It didn't taste like much, but for some reason his chest felt a little less heavy. That afternoon, the principal called in the three boys. The conference room smelled like lemon cleaner and fear. Their parents sat behind them, tense and confused. Principal Lee folded her hands on the table. "I'm going to show you something," she said quietly. The video played. For 62 seconds, no one breathed. The sound of paper tearing filled the room like thunder. When it ended, Jake's mother covered her mouth. Connor's father whispered, "My God." Liam looked at the floor, cheeks flushed crimson. Principal Lee leaned forward. "This is not just bullying. It's humiliation. It's cruelty." Jake opened his mouth, closed it, then whispered, "We were just messing around." Her gaze was sharp. "Does he look like he thought it was funny?" Jake's throat tightened. He couldn't answer. He saw himself on that screen, not as a kid goofing off, but as someone he didn't recognize. "Someone mean?" Connor's father put a hand on his son's shoulder, but Connor jerked away. "We didn't think—" "That," Principal Lee said, "is exactly the problem." The room went still. Mr. Harlan, standing in the corner, watched quietly. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just felt tired. The kind of tired that comes from seeing justice start to turn, but not knowing how far it would go. Principal Lee exhaled slowly. "You'll each serve a week's suspension. But more than that, you'll meet with Mr. Harlan and with Ethan if he's willing. You're going to understand what this did to him." The parents nodded. The boys didn't, not yet. As they left, Jake turned to Mr. Harlan. His voice was small. "You filmed it?" Mr. Harlan nodded. "I did." "Why?" Jake asked, his tone cracking between anger and shame. "Because someone needed to remember." When the counselor told Ethan that the principal wanted to meet, he thought he was in trouble again. He sat in the waiting chair, knees bouncing, eyes fixed on the floor tiles. Principal Lee greeted him gently. "Ethan, you're not in trouble. We just wanted to talk about what happened." He blinked. You know?" She nodded. "We saw what they did. Someone recorded it." Ethan's breath caught. "Who?" "Mr. Harlan." He didn't speak for a long moment. Then softly, "He saw?" "Yes, and because of him we can fix this." The word fix hit him like a wave. It was the word he'd whispered to himself while picking up the torn pages. "It's okay. I can fix it." Except this time, it wasn't just him trying. He met with the counselor later that day. They talked about fear, humiliation, and forgiveness. Ethan didn't know what forgiveness felt like. He only knew the anger that sat quietly behind his ribs, the shame that still burned when he walked past the place where it happened. He asked a question no one expected. "Are they okay?" The counselor blinked. "The boys." He nodded. "They'll be facing consequences, Ethan. You don't need to worry about them." But he did. He didn't want them to hurt. He just wanted them to see. That night at home, he told his mother everything. She listened without interrupting. When he was done, she pulled him close and said, "You don't need to be invisible anymore." For the first time in days, Ethan smiled. A small, real smile. A week later, the cafeteria looked normal again. At least from the outside. The same smells, the same laughter, but something was different underneath. Jake sat at a smaller table now, alone. Connor and Liam had drifted away. The suspension had ended, but the silence hadn't. Conversation stopped when he walked by. He didn't blame them. He barely liked himself anymore. Every night since the meeting, he replayed the video in his head. He didn't see the laughter anymore. He saw Ethan's face, the fear, the quiet. He'd thought strength meant being in control. Now, he understood strength could mean standing alone and still not breaking. He saw Mr. Harlan mopping the hallway and approached him, hands in pockets. "Hey," Jake said. Mr. Harlan looked up, cautious. "Yeah," Jake hesitated. "I just wanted to say sorry, for real. Not 'cause I have to. I didn't see what it did. I do now." Mr. Harlan studied him for a moment. "You're young," he said finally. "What matters is what you do next." Jake nodded. "I'll make it right." He meant it. Later that week, Jake asked to speak to Ethan. The meeting was awkward, quiet, and short, but it mattered. "I'm sorry," Jake said, voice trembling. "I thought it was a joke." "I was wrong." Ethan looked at him, unsure whether to believe it. Then he nodded once. "Okay, not forgiveness yet, but the start of it." In the following days, something changed in the school's rhythm. The teachers spoke about kindness more. The students, for a while, watched how they treated each other. And though the buzz of life returned, a seed had been planted, one that grew quietly beneath the noise. As for Mr. Harlan, he became something new in people's eyes, not just the man who mopped floors, but the man who saw things. He still swept the halls every morning, still hummed under his breath, but there was a new light in him. When he passed Ethan one afternoon, their eyes met. No words, no thanks, just a quiet nod between two people who had both been invisible, and both finally seen. Outside, the last bell rang. The sky was orange with late sunlight. The torn paper placed near the gate was clean now, the puddle long gone. Only the wind remembered the sound of the pages tearing and carried it away soft as forgiveness. Room 112 smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and paper. The counselor, Ms. Reyes, arranged 10 folding chairs in a ring and set a smooth gray stone in the center. No desks, no podium, just a circle. Ethan sat on one side, hands in his lap. Across from him sat Jake, Connor, and Liam. Principal Lee stood nearby. Mr. Harlan leaned against the wall, cap tucked under one arm. Ms. Reyes began softly. Today isn't about blame. It's about what happened and what comes next. Whoever holds the stone speaks. Everyone else listens. She placed the stone in Ethan's palm. He turned it once before speaking. I used to think being quiet kept me safe, he said. But that day when you tore my homework, it felt like I stopped existing. I kept thinking, if I disappeared, would anyone even notice? His voice was calm, almost too calm. He passed the stone to Mr. Harlan. I saw it, Mr. Harlan said. I recorded it because I've seen too many things get forgotten. I once wished someone had done the same for me. He handed the stone to Jake. Jake stared at it. When I watched the video, he whispered, I hated the person in it. I thought being funny made it okay, but all I see now is someone scared to be decent. Connor's turn. I laughed because he laughed, he said, nodding toward Jake. I didn't want to be next. Liam rubbed his eyes. I smiled so it wouldn't look like I cared. But I did. The stone returned to Ms. Reyes. That's a start, she said. Now we decide how to repair what was broken. The circle held still. Then, slowly, the air changed. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but the space had opened for it. The next day, Ms. Reyes gave each boy an assignment. Write a letter, not an excuse. Jake sat at his kitchen table for hours. He started over 5 times before writing something that felt true. I'm sorry for making you feel small. I laughed because I thought power meant people looking at me. I was wrong. Connor's letter was blunt. I followed because I was afraid. That doesn't make it harmless. Liam's was shorter, but the hardest to write. I pretended it was a joke so I wouldn't have to face what it was. When Ethan opened the envelopes that evening, his mother folding laundry behind him, he didn't cry. He felt a slow breath fill his chest, the kind that doesn't fix everything but makes room for tomorrow. Principal Lee believed consequences should teach, not just punish. For 2 weeks, the 3 boys worked with Mr. Harlan after school. They scrubbed gum from tile, scraped tape off glass, pushed mops down endless halls. Mr. Harlan said little. He showed them how to wring a mop properly, how to see what others overlook. On the 4th day, Jake asked, Why do you stay here? Doesn't it bother you when people act like you're invisible? Mr. Harlan smiled faintly. I like leaving things better than I found them. That's enough. The next day, none of them needed reminding to show up. When the 2 weeks ended, the halls looked the same, but the boys didn't. They had learned how effort feels when no one claps for it. Ms. Delaney gave Ethan time to redo his project. No rush, she said. Jake asked if he could sit nearby after school, just to keep you company. Connor and Liam joined one afternoon. Quiet, respectful. The new homework wasn't perfect. One corner still smudged, one line taped back together. But when Ethan handed it in, Ms. Delaney said, This looks lived in. And he smiled for real. For the first time, he felt seen for his effort, not his silence. A week later, the school held an assembly called When We See. Ms. Reyes, Mr. Harlan, Ethan, and a few students sat on the stage. No details, no names, just lessons. Ethan spoke into the microphone, voice steady. I didn't want revenge, he said. I just wanted someone to notice. 4 sentences. No applause, just listening, Mr. Harlan said quietly. We all decide who we are when no one's watching. Somewhere in the bleachers, Jake bowed his head. After the assembly, conversation spread like ripples, small, private ones between friends. A seventh grader told another, "If I see something like that, I'll say something." Change had started. Not loud, but real. Ms. Reyes gave the idea a name. The Bridge Project. Twice a week after school, a cart rolled into the courtyard with paper, tape, and pencils. The sign read, "Start again here." Students could fix torn pages, rewrite missed notes, or just sit and breathe. Ethan ran the cart. Jake came the first day, helping quietly. Connor organized supplies. Liam taught a younger kid how to patch a music sheet. What looked like craft time was really practice for forgiveness. Even Mr. Finch, the detention supervisor, wandered by. "If you need space inside when it rains," he said, "use the multi-purpose room." Then he added almost shyly, "Good work. Change doesn't announce itself. It shows up in habits." Jake still carried guilt, but he learned to use it as a compass. He met Ethan twice a week to check homework. Not to lead, just to show up. Connor joined the peer support group. The first time he spoke, his voice shook, but he didn't stop. Liam joined stage crew for the spring concert. When someone ripped a poster by accident, he fixed it before anyone noticed. Ethan wasn't suddenly fearless. He still flinched at loud laughter, still preferred quiet corners, but his gaze lifted more easily now. The difference was small and everything. One late afternoon, Ethan found Jake sitting on the low wall near the courtyard, watching wind stir the trees. "Hey," Ethan said. Jake looked up. "Hey." They sat in comfortable silence until Ethan asked, "Why'd you come to the cart that first day?" Jake thought for a long time. "I wanted to see if I could be better than the guy in the video." Ethan nodded. "You are." "Most days," Jake laughed softly. "Most days." They both watched as Mr. Harlan wheeled his cart past. The floors gleamed behind him. He raised a hand. They raised theirs back. Inside, Ms. Reyes locked up room 112. The Bridge Project sign leaned against the wall, edges curled from weather but still legible. She slipped a small envelope onto Principal Lee's desk for the student leaders. 4 names on the note: Ethan, Jake, Connor, Liam, and a single key to the room. Principal Lee found it later that evening. She smiled quietly, tucking the envelope in her drawer. Above her desk, the hallway camera's red light blinked. Steady, patient, recording an ordinary day that wasn't ordinary anymore. The next morning, the courtyard was bright, washed in early sun. The repaired sign caught the light, its words soft but certain. "Start again here." Ethan arrived first, unfolding the table. Jake brought tape. Connor and Liam carried paper. Mr. Harlan appeared last, as always, pushing his cart with its familiar squeak. No speeches, no ceremony, just hands setting things in order. The bell rang, scattering them toward class, but the sign stayed. Students passed it without thinking, until one dropped a folder, papers spilling across the ground. He knelt to gather them, then noticed the cart and paused. For a second, he considered using it. He did. Somewhere inside, a seed of courage turned over. The air felt lighter that morning. Sunlight spilled through the school's courtyard, warming the benches and the corners where shadows once lingered. For the first time in a long while, Ethan didn't rush through the gate with his head down. His backpack hung loosely on one shoulder, and there was no trembling in his hands, just quiet purpose. He passed the place where it had all happened, the puddle long gone, the torn paper memories replaced by green grass and chalk lines from yesterday's recess. He stopped for a second, not out of sadness, but acknowledgement. This is where it broke. This is where it began again. At the entrance, a small sign leaned against the brick wall. The Bridge Project. Start again here. He smiled at the familiar sight. Students were already gathered there, fixing posters, taping torn notebooks, laughing over crooked edges. This time, the laughter didn't sting. It sounded real, sounded like peace. During first period, Principal Lee made an announcement over the intercom. Her voice, calm and even, carried through the halls. "Today, I want to take a moment to recognize a few students who reminded us what community truly means. When faced with unkindness, they chose courage, reflection, and repair. That's what growth looks like." She didn't say names. She didn't need to. Ethan's classmates turned their heads toward him. A few smiled. Some nodded. He didn't shrink this time. He lifted his chin and met their eyes. Ms. Delaney, his math teacher, caught his gaze and said softly, "Good work." "Ethan, you kept going," he whispered. "Thank you," and opened his notebook. In the corner of the first page, written neatly in pencil, were 3 small words: "Keep fixing things." Later that day, as the final bell rang, Jake waited by the courtyard bench, the same one where he and Ethan sometimes sat after school. He looked different now, less guarded, more human. The smirk that once covered fear had softened into something honest. When Ethan approached, Jake stood. "Hey," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "There's something I wanted to show you." He pulled out a folded flyer. Across the top it read, "Ridgewood Peer Ally Program, student volunteers needed." "They're starting it next month," Jake said. "Ms. Reyes thought we could help lead it." Ethan blinked. "Us?" Jake shrugged, grinning a little. "I figured we've got experience in both sides of the problem." Ethan smiled, a slow, genuine one. "Yeah, I'd like that." Connor and Liam joined them soon after, backpacks slung low, still joking but softer now. They carried boxes of new paper and tape for the bridge project. "Ms. Reyes says we're on setup duty," Connor said. "Guess we're the repair crew now." Liam smirked. "At least we're good at tearing things apart." "Time to learn the other half." Ethan laughed quietly. "You're already learning." And in that moment he realized something important. They were no longer his enemies. They were just kids, like him, figuring out how to grow beyond their mistakes. Across the courtyard, Mr. Harlan pushed his cart, the wheels squeaking in their familiar rhythm. He paused when he saw the group setting up the repair table, Ethan arranging supplies, Jake unfolding the sign, Connor stacking paper, Liam tightening a clip. He stood there for a long moment, taking it in. In the quiet hum of after-school noise, he thought about all the things he'd carried over the years, the echoes of his own childhood, the memories of times he hadn't spoken up, the guilt that had followed him like a shadow. Now, for once, he didn't feel that weight. He approached the group hat in hand. "Looks like you've got this under control," he said. Jake looked up. "You're still part of it, Mr. Harlan." The older man smiled. "Maybe, but I think you've learned what to do without me." He nodded toward the sign, "Start again here." "Keep that promise," he said, and turned to continue his rounds. As he walked away, the squeak of his cart sounded almost musical, steady, patient, proud. The seasons shifted quietly. Spring melted into summer, and the bridge project became part of Ridgewood's routine. Students dropped by between classes, sometimes just to talk. Teachers stopped by too, helping patch posters or lend scissors. The courtyard that had once been a silent witness to cruelty was now a place of connection. And though no one said it aloud, everyone knew why it mattered. Ethan found himself invited into groups more often. He didn't always say yes, he still liked quiet spaces, but now he said no without fear. When someone new asked about the bridge project's meaning, he'd smile and say, "It's about fixing small things before they become big ones." Jake joined the Peer Ally program and helped younger students mediate conflicts. He wasn't perfect, but he tried, and that trying became its own kind of redemption. Connor took up photography for the school paper, capturing images of people helping each other. Liam started volunteering with the janitorial team after school, saying, "It feels right to keep things clean." Even Mr. Finch, the teacher who'd once walked past without stopping, began checking the halls more attentively. When he caught students teasing someone, he didn't lecture. He pulled them aside and talked quietly, calmly, the way someone once should have talked to him. The ripple had grown. One act of courage, one decision to see, had changed everything. One late afternoon, Ethan sat alone beneath the same tree he'd once cried under. The sky glowed with streaks of orange and gold. A light breeze carried the faint smell of cut grass and chalk dust. He opened his notebook, the one he'd rebuilt after the incident, and flipped to the last page. He wrote, "Sometimes you don't get to choose the moment that breaks you, but you get to choose what happens after." He paused, smiled, and added, "And sometimes someone is watching, not to judge you, but to help you stand." He closed the notebook, exhaled slowly, and looked toward the window of the janitor's office. Mr. Harlan was there, cleaning brushes, humming a soft tune. Their eyes met briefly. Ethan gave a small nod of gratitude. The older man returned it with a quiet smile, the kind that says, "You did it." As the final bell echoed across the courtyard, Ethan slung his backpack over his shoulder and began walking home. The path felt different now. Not shorter, but lighter. For the first time, he wasn't walking away from something. He was walking toward something. His own story, written in confidence instead of fear. In the fading sunlight, the bridge project cart stood under the tree, its sign gently swaying in the breeze. A torn math sheet lay on the table, half repaired, waiting for someone to finish the job. And in that unfinished piece, there was something perfect. A quiet reminder that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means continuing. Mr. Harlan wheeled his cart across the courtyard one last time before locking up for the day. He looked back once more, his eyes soft and proud. Tomorrow, new students would come. New mistakes would be made. But now, this place knew how to repair. Not just paper, but people. As the screen of the story fades, Ethan's voice lingers softly. What they tore was paper. What they gave me was strength. What we built together was hope. The frame holds on the empty courtyard, peaceful, glowing, alive again, before the scene fades to black.